February 3rd, 1637. A room full of tulip traders in Haarlem, Netherlands gather for their regular auction. They've been doing this for months now, bidding up the prices of tulip bulbs to astronomical levels. Some bulbs are selling for more than luxury houses in Amsterdam. But today, something different happens. A buyer refuses to pay the agreed price for a bulb. Then another buyer backs out, then another. And within hours the entire tulip market collapses. Fortunes that existed only on paper evaporate instantly, and the world experiences its first modern speculative bubble, proving that human greed and delusion are not inventions of Wall Street, but fundamental features of how markets have always worked. If you want to understand why people keep making the same insane financial mistakes across 400 years of history, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about what financial crisis we should cover next, because Tulip Mania in 1637 is the template for every bubble that came after. From the South Sea Company to dot-com stocks to cryptocurrency, the pattern never changes, only the asset being worshipped. The Dutch Republic in the early 1600s was the richest society on earth. Amsterdam was the financial capital of the world. Dutch merchants controlled global trade routes from Indonesia to the Americas, and wealth was flooding into the country at unprecedented levels. The Dutch Golden Age was creating a new merchant class with money to spend and a desire to show off their status, and tulips became the perfect status symbol. These flowers had been introduced from Turkey decades earlier. They were exotic, beautiful, and rare. Tulip cultivation was an art form. The most prized varieties had unique color patterns caused by a virus that created striped and flamed petals. The most famous tulip was called Semper Augustus. It had red and white flames on its petals and was considered the most beautiful flower in existence. And by 1636, a single Semper Augustus bulb was worth 6,000 guilders. That's more than 15 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman. More than a luxury house on the Amsterdam Canal, more than a ship full of cargo. The speculation started slowly. Wealthy collectors would pay high prices for rare bulbs. Then merchants noticed they could make money buying and selling bulbs without ever actually caring about the flowers. The tulip trade moved from gardens to taverns. Traders would meet in colleges, as they called them, basically drinking clubs where they would buy and sell bulbs that were still in the ground. They created futures contracts where you could buy a bulb that wouldn't bloom for months. They developed options and other derivatives. All the financial instruments we associate with modern markets were invented to trade tulip bulbs in Dutch taverns. The mania accelerated in 1636, when common people started getting involved. Weavers, carpenters, farmers, everyone wanted in on the easy money. They would sell their tools, their land, even their houses to raise capital to buy tulip bulbs. The logic was simple. Prices had been going up for months. Everyone who bought tulips got rich, so obviously you should buy tulips too. Nobody wanted to miss out. The fear of missing out was overwhelming. Here's what made it truly insane. People were paying these astronomical prices for bulbs they had never seen. The bulbs were still in the ground and wouldn't bloom for months. Sometimes they were trading contracts for bulbs that didn't even exist yet. Promises to deliver tulips that hadn't been planted. It was pure speculation detached completely from any underlying value. The price had nothing to do with how pretty the flower was or how rare it actually was. It was just about finding someone willing to pay more than you paid. At the peak of the mania in January 1637, common bulb varieties that had been worthless a year earlier were selling for a month's wages. Rare varieties were selling for amounts that could buy estates, and the most prized bulbs like Semper Augustus were being traded for values equivalent to multiple houses. People were signing contracts to pay thousands of guilders for flowers that might not even survive the winter. Then, in early February 1637, reality arrived suddenly at an auction in Haarlem. Buyers simply stopped showing up, or they showed up but refused to honor their contracts. Someone realized that a tulip bulb is just a tulip bulb. It doesn't produce income, it doesn't generate value, it just sits in the ground and maybe produces a pretty flower, and suddenly nobody wanted to pay a year's salary for that. The collapse was immediate and total. Within days, prices fell. 99%. Bulbs that had sold for thousands of guilders couldn't find buyers at any price. The futures contracts became worthless paper, and everyone who had bought at the peak was financially destroyed. Weavers who had sold their looms couldn't afford to buy them back. Farmers who had mortgaged their land lost everything, and the merchants who had gotten rich on paper watched their fortunes evaporate. The aftermath was messy. Courts were flooded with cases of people trying to get out of their tulip contracts. The Dutch government tried to intervene and convert the futures contracts into options where buyers could pay a penalty to walk away. But the damage was done. Thousands of people had been ruined, chasing an illusion of easy wealth. Here's what's important about tulip mania. Economists still debate how much it actually damaged the Dutch economy. Some argue it was mostly limited to speculators and didn't affect the broader economy. Others claim it caused real disruption. But what's not debatable is the psychological pattern it established. Tulip mania proved that humans will create bubbles in anything if the story is compelling enough. It doesn't matter if it's tulips, stocks, real estate, or digital coins. If enough people believe prices will keep rising, they'll keep rising, until suddenly everyone realizes it's nonsense. The pattern from 1637 repeats constantly. A new asset appears. Early adopters make money, word spreads, common people get involved. Prices detach from any rational valuation. Everyone convinces themselves this time is different. Then one day buyers stop appearing and the bubble pops. It happened with tulips in 1637, with South Sea Company stock in 1720, with railway shares in the 1840s, with dot-com stocks in 2000, and it's happening right now in various assets that people are convinced can only go up. If you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe and share this with anyone who needs to understand that bubbles are not anomalies in human behavior, but the default setting. Because we've been doing this for 400 years, and we'll keep doing it until the next tulip bulb appears under a different name.